Hi, I want to welcome you to the Healthy Living Virtual Expo hosted by the Daily Breeze and Press Telegram. My name is Julie Corlett and I work for the Southern California News Group in the marketing department. And thank you for joining us today. This session is being taped. As you can see, it's an interactive session. So our guests have come on. They can be on camera. They come in muted. We ask that you just stay muted while there is talking, but you feel free to unmute at any point. Meg really wants to make this as interactive as possible. And that's the whole idea behind this format. So today's session, as you know, is about loneliness and isolation, and it is sponsored by Home Instead. And our presenter is Meg Fish, and she is a client care coordinator at Home Instead. So with that, I will say welcome, Meg, and I'm looking forward to your session.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the session this morning. It's going to be on isolation and loneliness. And like Julie said, I'm really hoping that we can make this interactive. So if you have a question, don't have to wait till the end. I am going to ask you some questions. I hope you feel free, just raise your hand or unmute and share. And we also have a chat box. So let's go ahead and get started. I know we have more people joining, but we can go ahead and get started. So the topic today is isolation and loneliness, and we're going to be talking about how they're different and what we can do to overcome them. COVID this past year has been particularly hard for everybody with the isolation, not being able to see our family and our friends. So we really thought this would be a great topic. Like Julie said, my name is Meg Fish. I'm with Home Instead. We're a home care agency in Long Beach, and I will be talking at the end about some of the things that we do and what we can do to help. So what we're going to start with is, and I'm kind of new at doing this computer webinar too, so have patience. I'm trying to coordinate the slides with my talking. So what we're going to do today is talk about loneliness and isolation. And by the end of the seminar, my hope is that you'll be able to describe the difference between isolation and loneliness. You'll be able to describe the impact that it has not only on older adults, but on caregivers as well. Identify the warning signs and failing health in older adults when dealing with loneliness and isolation. And last, we're going to talk about some resources and things that we can do to overcome isolation and loneliness. So I'm going to throw out the first question. Does anybody have a sense what is the difference between isolation and loneliness? Anybody want to share any thoughts of what they think the difference is between the two? You can just unmute. Okay, I will go ahead and talk then. Okay, so isolation is actually kind of a physical thing. It's more measurable. When we are physically isolated, we are not able to go to events. We are not able to see people. Loneliness is more subjective. It's distress over not having those connections, over missing somebody, and they can be intertwined. Sometimes you can be isolated but not lonely. Sometimes you're lonely but not feel isolated. Some people like to be alone, and so even through COVID, it didn't impact them as much because being alone was okay for them. So here are some potential risk factors. So obviously the first one is living alone. It may be hard to get out to see somebody if a loved one is not able to drive anymore, or they're physically distanced from somebody. That's difficult. Unmarried, widowed, or divorced. A lot of times as we get age, we are losing loved ones, and so that makes it more difficult as well. COVID and not being able to participate in social groups, not being able to go to our churches or synagogues or our clubs that we are part of. That's very isolating. Having fewer friends, and a lot of that is with aging as we get older. You know, again, folks are either moving or that we're passing away, so it makes it more of a struggle. And strained relationships. Not everybody has the Beaver relationship, leave it to Beaver family relationship. So sometimes having a strained relationship with a loved one makes it more difficult. And lastly, location. If you're in a rural area or feeling unsafe and you don't feel safe moving, maybe your neighborhood has changed over the years. And so that makes it more difficult to go out as well. So talking about potential risk factors. So here we go. Okay, so these are risk factors for both isolation and loneliness. Does anybody have any questions yet about the difference between isolation or loneliness? Anybody have any questions or anything? Okay, so the first one is being in poor health or well-being. So some of, as we age, we may have mobility issues. We're not able to walk as easily. Maybe one thing that you used to do is go out and walk around your neighborhood. And now as somebody is aging, you're not able to walk as much. Cognitive impairments. Maybe somebody's not allowed to drive anymore because of their cognitive issues, or they're starting to feel uncomfortable in social situations, so that makes it difficult as well. And the last one is poor mental health, and that's dealing with depression. And depression is different than loneliness or isolation. Depression is an overwhelming, feeling of hopelessness, of sadness, where isolation is more triggered towards being physically separated from somebody, and loneliness is more kind of emotionally missing somebody. So here's some potential risk factors. Major life changes, leaving the workforce. Has anybody retired lately?
I have. I just retired.
Oh yeah, and who is this?
Janine, sorry, Janine.
Oh, Janine, hi.
Hi.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how is that affecting you?
Well, I retired during COVID. So when I was working, I didn't feel there was any change because we were considered essential. I was in an office, but I went to work every day. Everything was the same for me. And then I retired in August, and I was, in a big pool of people going through the same thing I was. So it was, it really mitigated the isolation that I was feeling. But yeah, definitely I was such a social animal at work without even being aware of it, but it was a major gab fest. And now I live alone, and there can be days I don't speak to anyone.
Yes. And that's very hard. So yeah, so a lot of us, rely on work for our daily interactions with people, our friends for work, people that we enjoy, or if we have customers come in. So thanks, Janine, for sharing that. Another thing that happens is a loss of a spouse, loss of family, loss of friends. And, as we age, we're all dealing with those losses, and that can create feelings of extreme loneliness, isolating ourselves because we really are not up for being around other people. Another big one is becoming a caregiver for a loved one. So that can be very isolating, because if you're caring for somebody who cannot be left alone, there goes your whole social network. So you not being able to leave because you have a loved one at home, feeling guilty because you don't want to leave the loved one at home, feeling guilty because you're missing going out, but you know that your loved one is unable to do that. And lastly is moving. Oftentimes we may be moving into an assisted living or moving in with our children. And although those are supposed to promote engagement, sometimes it's just reconnecting with people, and it's hard. It's hard to make friends as we get older. I'm finding it's hard to make friends. It's not like when you were younger and it was so easy. So even if you move into an assisted living for the companionship, for other people, until you build those relationships, it can be very difficult. And societal barriers, of course, COVID, and with COVID gave us the lack of opportunity to engage and contribute because it was just very unsafe for us. It was very unsafe for our health. Okay, so symptoms. So with isolation, with loneliness, and with depression, you know, sometimes it can affect us physically. We can have muscles, we can have aches and pains, it causes headaches. Sometimes we may have a medical condition and it just exasperates it because we're not getting out, we're not moving, we're not interacting with other people. So whatever we're dealing with is getting even worse. And then the mental health conditions, increased risk of depression. If we are alone all the time, that does increase. And what Janine says, that sometimes she goes days without talking to anybody, that's very isolating. Having mood swings, anxiety, paranoia, panic attacks. Have any of you been experiencing any of these either physical or mental health conditions through the whole COVID crisis that would like to share? No? Okay. I know for me, there was definitely an increased risk, increased depression, not being able to see family members and hearing from family members how sad they were and not being able to do anything about it. Other symptoms are low energy, feeling tired, lack of motivation, you know, kind of being a brain fog. You know, when we kind of get situated in that, you know, we get started with that kind of loneliness or isolation, it's easy to say, oh, I'm just going to stay in my nightgown all day. I'm not even going to worry about going to walk because I don't need to go to work. I don't need to do anything. It's easier just to stay isolated. And then there's all kinds of sleep issues. You know, sometimes we can't get to sleep. Sometimes we wake up frequently and can't get back to sleep. Sometimes because of the feeling of isolation or loneliness, we're staying asleep way too long. And also we're just sleeping too much because we're missing somebody or there's not other opportunities to do things. And then other symptoms is either, you know, feeling a loss of appetite or an increase in appetite. Everybody kind of handles food differently. And so, you know, sometimes we just don't feel like eating because we used to always go to, you know, dinner with our best friend on Friday nights, and we can't do that anymore. We aren't able to because we can't drive, we can't get out. And so it kind of, you know, takes that desire away a little bit. Also, sometimes people will increase the consumption, you know, instead of having a glass of wine at night, you know what, I'm going to have a couple of glasses or 3 glasses, you know, just to kind of ease the feeling of the sadness that goes with isolation and loneliness. And then there's our cognitive thoughts, you know, feeling like we're worthless, having feelings of hopelessness, and then even people having thoughts of suicide makes it very, very difficult. So additional warning signs. So this kind of talks to if you are a caregiver or if you have friends, things that you may notice in other people. So somebody that used to socialize all the time is, you know, not really wanting to socialize anymore. They're feeling a loss of interest in socializing. And so that makes it very, you know, kind of worrisome as to what's going on with this person. Why are they not coming to the group anymore? Why aren't they joining us? You know, hearing and vision issues. It's very hard. My grandma, it was very difficult for her to hear. So she didn't want to go out because everybody be engaged in conversation, and then she couldn't hear anything, and it made it very uncomfortable for her. And also vision issues. If you can't see, sometimes you just don't feel like you want to go out anymore. And we talked about the mobility issues. Other things to look at for loved ones is changes in their appearance. All of a sudden, is their personal hygiene going? Are they not shaving anymore? Are they not cleaning themselves anymore? So these are things to really kind of look out for in other people. Also, transportation issues. Is it driving gets difficult? A lot of us don't like driving at night. So if activities are going on at night, we lose, our family member takes away our car because they don't feel it's safe for us to drive the car anymore. So all of those things increase it. And another thing to look for is, so if you have a friend and you go visit them and they're usually really neat and tidy and clean and everything's great, and all of a sudden you notice, there's spoiled food in the kitchen, things are getting really cluttered, or they have missed their medication. And so missing the medication, you don't know if what they're experiencing is because they have missed their medication or because they're experiencing true isolation and true loneliness. Do any of you have any questions or any thoughts so far? Oh, okay, we'll keep plugging along. So connection can reduce risk of early mortality by 50%. So that's huge. So it's very, very important for us to stay engaged. I've got a chat from one of our members that said they live alone, they're 65, they're considering moving from California to Texas or Florida. Would this be a big mistake at this point in life by starting over again? New friends, new doctors, new housing. You know what? I think that's a very personal decision. For me, I think if right now if you were very dissatisfied with your life right now, and you're physically and financially able to do it, I mean, it's a great opportunity. It's exciting. And at 65, there's still so many things that you can do. And the thing is, you can always come back. You can always come back. So for me, that sounds exciting, but you have to weigh out. Are you leaving friends here? Are you leaving family here? Financially, what's it going to be like? But to me, it seems like an exciting opportunity, especially if I was alone and I was unhappy. But again, you have to kind of look at the pros and the cons. That would be my suggestion, is looking at the pros and the cons and seeing, what the benefit would be for. Okay, thank you for sharing that. So ways to reduce our risk is to support and maintain our existing relationships, building new relationships, and change thinking about relationships. Again, through COVID, it's been very difficult. All of you are on a call, so obviously you know how to do the Zoom, you know how to do the meetings, but not everybody does, and it gets very frustrating for people, and they let their relationships go because it's too challenging. And so now the opportunity is to start over and build the new relationships or become re-engaged, and it's just so beneficial, so beneficial. So this is for, again, the next one is, if you're seeing either in yourself, in a loved one, in a friend, you're starting to see things that are really, really concerned for you. So what, the steps are is kind of to recognize, something is off, either with myself or with my neighbor or with my sister. Try to understand what's going on and then respond to it by sharing your concerns, talking to either that person about your concerns or family members, other friends, and saying, have you noticed, that Sally has not answered the phone in weeks, or Sally has not come out to see us at all. Is that something that you are, are you seeing that too? And then trying to understand the community resources. Hopefully everything's going to start opening up. The senior centers will start opening up. The clubs will start opening up. So kind of gathering some resources of what's going to be coming available, and then create a plan or a calendar of events. And sometimes I know for me, myself, like I'll say, oh, I'm going to do something. And then the time comes and I'm like, oh, I don't feel like going. So like picking one thing and staying committed to it. Because I know usually if I can get myself there, I feel a lot better about it. And I get that, I feel happier, and I'm in a better mood when I get back. Okay, ways to connect. So let me ask you, and hopefully we'll share. Tell me what you were doing pre-COVID that got you involved with other people. And if you're not comfortable talking, maybe share in the chat room. What are some of the things that you were doing to stay connected to other people? Anybody?
I participate in the church choir and I traveled a lot, and both of
Oh.
those things have been eliminated.
Yes, yes. Church choir and traveling. Absolutely. Sharon said water aerobics. Absolutely. Doing water aerobics and being able to interact with other people. Anybody else?
Hi, this is Joanne. I was a massage therapist, so I had clients that I'd known for 20 years, and now I had surgery just prior to COVID. So I have not seen people in about a year and a half, maybe a little more than that. I've also had 10 friends move out of state in the last year. And that's like my entire friend group.
Oh man. So that's a lot of loss that you're dealing with. A lot of loss. A lot of loss. And I'm sure being a massage therapist and having clients for 25 years, they're more than clients to you. You have relationships with them.
Exactly.
So that's a lot of loss. That's a lot of loss. Sorry
Well,
about that.
also the physical contact, I mean, I
Right.
miss touching people.
Right.
And I also, my ex-husband just died 2 weeks ago. So it's been kind of traumatic, and luckily I'm a person who's, does well with being alone. But there've been many times I live with 2 cats, and through COVID, I've been very grateful to have them.
Yes, absolutely. I've got 2 dogs. I know how you feel. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Joe. Anybody else want to share?
I would say that by calling people on the phone is the best way to keep in touch with your friends and your family.
Mhm.
At least they know that you're around and how you're doing, and you know how they're doing. And you can also send notes out to people and let them know that you're thinking about them. That
Absolutely,
means
Fran.
to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, and scheduling those regular calls, let's talk every Sunday at 3 p.m. And now we're starting to be able to visit, sitting outside, or now they're recommending, that if you've been vaccinated, you can be together. So, hopefully things are going to start where we're going to be able to start connecting with other people. Now that things are reopening, volunteering, have any of you were pre-COVID, were you volunteering at anywhere?
No, I never volunteered. This is Janine. I never volunteered. I was working all the time, but I have been thinking about, now that everything's opening up, that is something I could explore as a volunteer, because what I noticed is that all the relationships, like Joanne said, were tied to my business. And I had not really consciously realized that, the dinners I had out and the daily, conversations I had were all business related. And now that I'm out of the business, my life is a lot smaller than I ever imagined it was, you know, it's kind of shocking.
Yeah, 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 it's very hard. So volunteering will be a way to connect with other people, absolutely. Transportation options, you know, there's a lot of if transportation is keeping you isolated, you know, the city of Long Beach, city of Lakewood, they all have different programs. So looking into those programs, trying technology or social media, that can kind of go either way, because sometimes we can get too obsessed with it. Or try to learn something new, take a class. I know there's so many things happening virtually, but hopefully, again, things will start happening in person where you can physically be somewhere to meet somebody that's got a similar interest with you. So revisit a hobby. I'm just curious, what are some hobbies that you have? Well, here, Jacqueline said she taught dancing, went to the gym, volunteered, oh boy, but then she broke her pelvis before COVID. So that's the whole, not even the COVID, but the physical things that can happen that can put us, as we were very active, and make us incredibly isolated because of something physical that happened. Okay, thank you. What other hobbies do people have? I'm just curious. Okay, I've got somebody quilting, gardening. That's great. Anybody else want to share anything, hobbies that they have?
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
Okay, I think this is the best presentation I have never seen. I've never heard of it. I think that this presentation should be shown in every home and TV for the senior citizens and grown-up children and young children, so we can reconnect with the senior citizen parents and children together.
Yeah, it's
You know, and your presentation is perfect. You're a good speaker, and then your main points that you can read on a screen. Many senior citizens cannot follow the speaker, but you wrote it down on the screen so we can read it. So I applaud you and thank you very much for your best presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. And this topic is just so current right now. It's so current and so important. Julie is sharing that she's doing sewing and doing her home projects again. And then Marilyn sharing she does photography, gardening have been great hobbies during COVID. Yes, because that's so true, because those are things that you can still do without having to do the connecting. So great, thank you, people. You know, the senior centers are hopefully opening. I know they have all these exercise classes, lunch programs, and so hopefully with that as well. And again, our faith-based organizations, there were times where the synagogues and churches were shut down and everything was virtual. So again, that was very isolating. And of course, big one for me is consider a pet. Consider getting a pet. To me, that's the best thing to avoid loneliness. A lot of responsibility, but great to avoid loneliness. So here are some resources on things that you can do to try to avoid some loneliness. And I just want to say, Andrea, oh my gosh, she used to attend TV audience tapings and enjoyed meeting people there. Amazing. And, you know, will that ever happen again? I mean, that's super cool. So here are just some things, and I know Julie said this will be recorded so you can find it. Meals on Wheels is a great program to volunteer for, because you are really making an impact on people's lives that are isolated themselves. So you bring them meals and you share some information with them, tell them how life's going, and that's a great program. Julie said there's going to be a link to the session that's going to be sent early next week. Here is there's another link for local senior centers and aging. Long Beach, we have several. Lakewood, we have a couple strong ones. So really important to try to get reconnected. And before I go to that one, we're kind of wrapping things up. Any other questions or comments that anybody would like to share, either via chat or via live?
If I make one more comment.
Yes.
When I was younger, I visited the nursing home quite often in the church. And then when I went to the nursing home, on the hall, a lot of ladies on a wheelchair and sit on the hall, you know. And as I passed by, hello, and they smiled, wow, hello, you know. They never, people don't talk to them. So when I say, hello, how are you? And then pay attention and they smile and their face lighten up and thank you for coming to us, you know. So the parents, children, friends should really visit nursing homes and senior citizens and contact with them. They will make their life much happier.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just even a friendly smile and somebody acknowledging them. I agree, Mr. Lee, because a lot of times people feel like there's nobody there. So just even saying hello to somebody, saying hi to your elderly neighbor, you know, that is outside, just stopping by to asking how they are, because it not only helps them, but I think it helps us as well. And so there's, you know, so many resources out there for whatever you're dealing with. You know, Home Instead, we provide in-home caregivers. So that's another way. If you know anybody that is having trouble to staying independent at their home, we have people that we can send in to help. And if any of you need any resources, you know, please feel free to, I'm megfish@homeinstead.com, even if it's not related to the agency, but you're looking for information about getting connected, you know, please give us a call. I'm actually going on vacation on Monday and I'll be gone through the half of the next week, but I will, if you want to email me or call, I will respond to you because I think it's just critical that we get out there and start getting reconnected. So this is it. Any final thoughts or any final questions that you would like to ask?
Hey, Meg, this is Julie. I just wanted to let you know that I'm with Mr. Lee, that just having this discussion, bringing it to the forefront, I think we're all been dealing with it, whether you're 16 or 80. So thank you for bringing this to us, and hopefully people got some great information out of it, and we'll continue to share it in post promotions of this event.
Great. Okay. Well, everybody, thank you so much for attending.
Thank you so much for all this information. It
You're
was really
welcome.
good for many people, I'm sure.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so everybody have a wonderful weekend. Stay connected, and hopefully we'll get to see each other out in the community again. So have a great day.
Have a great